Hey, welcome to the show, everyone. I'm your host, the Unhinged Father. This is the Unhinged Father podcast. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day so far. Got a real special episode for you today. This one is actually a request from a fan of the show, and not just any fan. She's an OG fan, actually someone who's encouraged me to do the podcast when I was first kind of thinking about doing it. So it's partially because of her that I'm here talking to y'all today. She sent me a quick message. Not going to name her by name. She knows who she is. She let me know that she's actually on her own journey right now to parenthood. She's going to have a little bundle of joy gracing her in the next couple of months. And I'm super excited for her. She's going to be a great mom. And she's a great person, empathetic, caring, good listener. She's got all the makings of a great mom. She's a great person. So I'm super excited for her. But she requested that I go over kind of some of the things that I think that you need as a parent. And I think she was talking more so about like the physical things and like the consumerism things that you need as a parent, which I'm going to go over, but I'm also going to throw in there some of the things that I think you need on like the mental and emotional side as well. I'm going to kind of do a two-parter here. So it's a no nonsense, no bullshit list. I'm not going to fucking frou-frou this up and send you all the shit that everyone's like, you need this as a parent, you need this as a parent. I'm gonna be like, no, this is what you need. This is why you need it. If you're listening and you're not a parent or you don't plan on being a parent and you don't give a shit about children's products or fucking child monitors or rockers, then look in the show notes. I'm going to put a timestamp on when I stop talking about the actual like physical products and I start talking about some of the more emotional and mental aspects of being a parent that I think that you really need to work on. And this isn't necessarily just for people that are going to be parents. That's what I want to make sure that if you're interested, that you listen to the part that's more so about like the emotional and mental aspects of being a parent, what you need to work on. Because I think that that's not just for parents or future parents. That's for anybody. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the episode. All right. So the moment you've all been waiting for, this is the unadulterated list of things that you are going to need as a parent or things that you should put as like your top priority as a parent when it comes to items that are going to be most helpful to being a parent. And number one on my list, and this is in no particular order, but the first thing that I've got written down was just baby monitors. And you've got two types of baby monitors that you're going to want to have. One is going to be the baby monitor for inside of your house. The one that's like the permanent baby monitor that's in the crib, that's in your bedroom if you're, co-sleeping in like the same bedroom at first. For us, we have what's called the Nanit. It can either be put on a stand over the crib or over the bassinet, or it could be mounted to the wall. It attaches to your phone. It has Wi-Fi capabilities, so you can, be gone on a date with a babysitter and you can open your phone, take a look at it. It also does like sleep analysis. So they give you the plan for free when you buy it. This is a more expensive monitor. We got one for our baby shower. It's been nice. It's split screen. I'm actually looking at one right now. My older child on the top, my younger on the bottom. But it does sleep monitoring. It'll like sense when they're awake, when they're, when someone comes in to visit, and then it'll give you little tips along the way when it comes to sleep training. And then if you're a really anxious parent, they do sell these swaddles that go along with the Nanit that you can put them in while they're in the crib. And they have like these specific little bars on them, and then it'll sense when they're breathing and stuff. And so if, like I said, if you're an anxious parent and you're worried about shit like that, it's just a little bit of a peace of mind. You can buy the swaddle and the Nanit, and then it'll do like breathing monitoring. You're probably only going to use that the first couple of months of life, but it depends on what peace of mind is worth it to you. So that's the only one that we have experience using is the Nanit, but you're going to want that monitor. And then you're also going to want a to-go monitor, one for if you go on vacation, you're in a hotel room, or you go to like a friend's house and you need to have a baby monitor on. The only suggestion I have here is get a good one that has Wi-Fi capabilities, because it's kind of a pain if you're in like a place that is bigger or you're going to be a little bit further away from the room where the baby's sleeping. You want to make sure that you have still access to like do that. You don't want to be limited by the range of the little baby monitor that comes with the camera. So I would just suggest getting a good Wi-Fi monitor as a travel monitor. It also is nice because if you end up going to like a hotel someday and, you know, they've got a restaurant or a bar or something like on a different level, you put baby to bed for the night, you want to like go down to a different room, or you need to leave for a second from the hotel room. It's nice to be able to just have that Wi-Fi capability to be able to like keep an eye on while you're outside of the room as well. So that would be the first thing on my list. Another thing that's been helpful for us, and you don't necessarily need to do this, a lot of these things we got for our baby shower. And just a quick tip is put whatever the fuck you want on your list for the baby shower. A lot of people are like, well, I don't want to put expensive stuff or too many things. A lot of times, like if you're the first person that's having children, or even if you're not one of the first people, like you have family members that are excited for you, that know that you're a new parent and like want to give you things to help you along the way in this parenting journey. So like, don't be afraid to put stuff on. People don't have to buy it for you, but like, don't be ashamed to put like your wish list stuff on there, just because you don't know who really wants to buy these things for you. And you might as well put it on there and let people love you how they want to love you, right? But this one is the DockATot. Some people just, use towels and stuff. Essentially what it is it's like a portable bassinet. It's got these like sides, but it's essentially so you could put the baby in and they can't roll or go off of stuff. They say you're not supposed to let babies take naps in it. We didn't, when the babies weren't rolling, we didn't have any issues with that. And like, we were always close by, but it was just kind of nice. We could like put it down. It's lightweight. You could pick them up in it, move them to a different part of the room. If you need to like set them down on a couch, they're not going to roll off or they're not going to like fall. So the DockATot is definitely something I think that's helpful. For us, this was, speaking of putting stuff on your wish list, right? We got the SNOO bassinet, which is an expensive piece of machinery, but I will tell you that it is awesome. It's a bassinet that has Bluetooth and like has a sound machine in it. It has motion in it as well. Essentially what it does is like if the baby starts crying or whimpering or whatever, it will hear the sounds coming from the child and then will start to increase the sound from the sound machine or increase the motion. And there's like different levels of it. And essentially if it gets to a point where it's like, well, we can't calm the baby down, it means that something's actually needs to be taken care of. Like either the baby wet their diaper or they're hungry or something like that. Some people promote this as like a cure-all for letting parents sleep and just being absolutely amazing. It's not a miracle worker. You're not going to get a shit ton of sleep because of this. But what I will say is that it's super helpful to have this for like the little wake-ups, right? If the baby's just kind of in transition or is just kind of starting to wake up, it may be enough to get the baby to fall back asleep just by having it do like the extra motion and stuff. So no, you're not going to get a full 6 to 7 hours of sleep just because of this machine, but you may get, the baby maybe have fallen asleep. You just fell asleep. You're an hour in, they're starting to toss and turn. You may get an extra hour of uninterrupted sleep because this machine is able to put them back to sleep. It's expensive. I think you could rent them nowadays. We've had a good experience utilizing ours. We've used it for both of our children and we let other people borrow it as well. It's expensive. Wish list if you don't want to spend that much. There's other bassinets out there. So maybe just find a good bassinet that can help you and your kids, get to sleep. Speaking of bassinets, whatever stroller you pick, there's a shit ton of good strollers out there. Get a good stroller. Get one that has like an attachment to get in and out of the car seat, right? We had one where the car seat actually attached to the stroller, so we could just pull our kid out, put him in the stroller in the car seat and go wherever we're going. That was very helpful. But also get one that's got a good bassinet attachment, because when you're in those early days postpartum, you're going to want to be able to go out for a walk, and having like a good bassinet stroller where they're laying down. We were able to take our kids on a walk. They would fall asleep in the stroller, and then we were able to detach the bassinet, bring them inside, and let them have a nap inside. So definitely, I would recommend a bassinet attachment for whatever stroller that you're getting. In that same line, there are some strollers that are car seats. There's like a new one. We never ended up getting it, but a lot of people really love them. It's like a car seat that just pops into a stroller, so that way you can like pull them out, pop the wheels down, and get going. Whatever makes it easiest for you. A lot of people are just like, no, we're only going to use this for such a short amount of time because kids grow so fast. Dude, you're going to want that convenience. You are going to want that convenience for the first couple of months. And then if you have an additional kid afterwards, right, then you've still got a lot of this hardware for the later children. A few other small things, just because I feel like I could talk about this shit forever. A baby carrier shirt or a baby carrier strap. I never had one for my first kid, but second one, it was definitely nice to be able to just like pop the kid in the little marsupial pocket in the front and walk around the house with him and like bop him, especially at like 2:30 when he was just refusing to sleep. And I was, basically doing laps around my house with the child in tow. It was kind of nice to be able to not have to carry him, just put him in that little pouch, walk around with him. He felt close, not skin to skin, but body to body. I forget what the shirt's called that I had, but it just got a little pouch. But then there's also like the carrier straps that you can get, which you can use them as they get heavier and heavier. The shirt is only good up until, I don't know, like 20 pounds or something like that. Either way, I would suggest having something like that just to make it easier to carry them around, especially if you've got big children like my kids. I'd say a good rocking chair for whatever room you're going to be doing the nursing. This one's more so for like the moms, but also dads when you're putting baby to sleep, putting them down for their nap, being able to have a good rocking chair that doesn't make a shit ton of noise. We have one that does like reclining. So in case we ever have to like stay in there with the baby and we want to try and get a little rest too by like laying down, a good rocking chair is definitely a good investment. We have one in the nursery, but we also have one because we have a spare one from our second kid in our room as well. Definitely, you're going to want a rocking chair of some sort. Blackout curtains in the baby's room. Some people are like, I want my baby to figure out how to sleep wherever they are. That's great. If you can do that and you've got the stamina to not get as much sleep, all good. But for us, it's really that the different circadian rhythms that the children have. And if they are just like their sleep tank isn't as full in the morning, say between the hours of like 5 and 6, and they can see that little bit of light peeking through the windows, it may be enough to just like trigger them to be like, oh, it's time for me to get up. So I would suggest blackout curtains. You want that room as fucking dark as possible. And then in that same vein of sleep, a good sound machine. We've always used sound machines for the kids. I feel like that it's been beneficial to them, to us, sleeping. It just kind of drowns out any of the periphery noise that may be coming in, cars, dogs fucking barking, any of that shit. We have the Hatch is like our permanent one. We have a travel one as well, a little travel circle one that they sell everywhere. But we have the Hatch as our home one just because it also now works as like a night light for our older kid. And you can like change the sounds and the light colors, and you can set up schedules for like waking up and shit like that. We like the Hatch. And then lastly, in terms of this like sleeping, I would definitely suggest some sort of sleep training, right? You want to learn why, like when your kid is going to be sleeping, what their schedule is going to be. I'm not telling you how to parent. It's all on you. Like if you want to do this, then this is just what I'm saying worked for us. And we just went through sleep training, as you all heard that we went through sleep training with my youngest kid, and it has been a fucking godsend because he may wake up like once at night now, but he now has been sleeping essentially through the night. It's 6:07. He's still sleeping. Like he's been waking up at like 4:50, 5:20. So it's been helpful. We use Taking Care of Babies. There's a book called Baby Wise. It's essentially the same, in the same vein of like ideology. But whatever you do, I would highly recommend some sort of sleep training. Not in the first couple of months, but you can start practicing. It's usually like between 3, 4, 5, 6 months where you actually have to like get into the heart of the sleep training. So I'm a big proponent of it, and I would highly recommend it to anyone that values their sleep. And the last one I got here is if you're going to be breastfeeding, and obviously I'm not super familiar with this. I've never strapped it on and actually tried them out myself, but a good booby juice pump is essential, especially if you are going to do breastfeeding. You want to have a good pump that works well. My wife really likes I think it's called the Spectra, and she used it for our first kid and our second kid. She got another one that was like a smaller one that she could use when she was like in the car. I don't have all the answers on this one. Do your research, especially because there's like newer pumps that have come out. Spectra is a good brand. But yeah, I would highly recommend getting a good booby pumper. And wow, that went a lot longer than I thought that it was going to go. Way longer than I thought it was going to go. So I'm still going to continue on. This is just going to be a longer episode, apparently. That's your unfiltered, unadulterated list of things that I think that you should get or that are going to be helpful to you as a first-time parent. To the person who requested this episode, I hope that is helpful. I'm sure I probably talked about a lot of that shit before with you, but that's the things that I think that are essential. Obviously, bottles and burp rags and all the other shit that goes along with it, but those are the things that I think are going to help you as a parent get sleep, be comfortable, have the convenience that you want, and the things that I wish people would have like let me know, like, yeah, these are the things that I wish I had. Now we're going to go ahead and jump into part two of this episode, more of the mental, emotional side of things that you need as a parent, and not just as a parent, just as a person in general. But these are definitely things that are helpful as a first-time parent that I wish people would have shared with me. Again, this is all just my opinion, my advice. You don't have to take it if you don't want to. You can turn the podcast off, or you can just listen and be like, God, this guy's full of shit. Either way, let's go ahead and jump in. The first thing that I really think, and there's only two really big ones on this, but the first thing is, I'm not sure if you want to call it grit, determination, stubbornness, gumption, whatever the hell it is that you want to call that, just that clad iron will to get things done and to be consistent and to be persistent with your child, because your kids are going to test you in every possible way imaginable. Just think of the hardest shit and the most inconsistent things that you've ever done and the most chaotic. That's going to be your life like 24/7 when you have children. And it could be really difficult. I don't sugarcoat shit here. Having kids, you've heard me talk about it before. Having kids is extremely difficult. One of the hardest things that I've ever done, but also one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done. And I'm not here to bash on other millennial parents. I know that this generation really does put a focus on like, how can we be the best parents that we can possibly be? But like a lot of things in society, I think sometimes we've gone way too much to the other side in terms of like gentle parenting and almost like non-parenting, just like, I'm not like a regular mom. I'm like a cool mom, right? I feel like sometimes we've gone too far. And I've talked to parents before who are just like, oh, my kid won't let me brush their teeth, or my kid refuses to go to sleep, or my kid refuses to sleep in their own bed, or my kid refuses to turn off the television. There's a lot of things that they talk about, like their kid refusing to do. And first of all, I want to be empathetic here. Your kids are going to refuse a lot of shit. They're going to tell you no. They're going to not want to brush their teeth. They're not going to want to take medicine. They're going to scream. They're going to cry. I get that. I also not wanting to be, like I said, if you've listened to this before, you know that I'm not just sitting here screaming at my kids, hitting them, telling them, do what you're told, because if you don't, you're going to get the belt. That's not my style whatsoever. It's a combination of some of the old school and the new school mentality. And in order to do that, especially when you do care so much about your kids, you're going to need determination and grit. It is hard to stay consistent. It is easy to go turn on an iPad or turn on a movie or something like that. And I'm not saying that that's bad. You're going to have to do that sometimes. Every first parent is always like, my kid will never watch any TV and they're never going to have sugar and they're going to fucking eat carrot sticks and to be the little geniuses. I'm not saying that. You can go ahead and utilize those things, but it's like you need to stay consistent and determined on a pretty regular basis. It's okay to give in once in a while. It's okay to like falter and not have that determination and not have the energy to continue to do these things that are very hard. But it can't be super consistent, right? You have to be able to do what's best for your child. That's why you're the parent. And it's hard to do that. especially if you are more so on like the quote unquote gentle parenting. I don't like that term gentle parenting because I don't think that it's like gentle. It's more like mindful parenting, full contact parenting, where you are involved in your child's life. You're thinking about different psychological and emotional aspects of your actions and how they're going to impact your kid. And you're trying to make them feel safe and loved. But at the same time, you're also trying to prepare them for the life that's ahead of them. And it's a very delicate line to walk down, because you don't want to coddle your kids too much to where they don't have any perseverance on their end. They give up easily. They just want to sit down, and a challenge comes up and they're like, oh, I can't do it. Mom and dad will do it for me, or I'll get my way no matter what. You don't want to create that environment. But at the same time, you don't want to sit there and have your kids live in fear of you because, they spilled a little bit of milk on the ground and like, oh shit, dad's going to beat the fuck out of me. You don't want that either. So for me, it's like finding that balance of being determined. And I always use the toothbrush and the brushing teeth example because it's just like a very clear thing to me when it's like you have to brush your kids' teeth. If you don't brush your kids' teeth, they're going to get they're going to get cavities regardless, just when the baby teeth, but you have to brush your kids' teeth. It's good for them. It's something that needs to be done, but it's also very hard, especially with little mouths and they just want to get up and play. They're going to scream. They're going to cry. You can try to make it as fun as you possibly can. Like I try to make it a game, like, oh, let's find baby sharks in your mouth, or, let's see if we can brush your teeth super fast and, faster than, I don't know, Sonic the Hedgehog. You can try and find these little games and they work sometimes and you try and make it collaborative. But at the end of the day, if your kid's refusing and they're screaming and crying, it's your job as a parent to essentially hold them down and brush their teeth. You have to do that. You have to have that grit, that determination, and that stubbornness to just be like, hey, I get it. You don't have to yell. You don't have to scream. You be like, hey, dude, I get it. You don't want to do this. Dad's got to hold you down and brush your teeth because it's good for you. We have to do this. And eventually they're going to learn that like, hey, mom and dad aren't going to just give up because I'm crying and screaming. I'm going to have to do this. Eventually, they'll start to kind of, I guess you would say, fall in line and make it a little bit more pleasant. That doesn't always happen, but even if it doesn't happen, it's still your job to make sure that that gets done as a parent. You need to be the one who's the responsible one, because it's not going to be your 3 or your fucking 4-year-old that's responsible. It's you as the 22 to 45-year-old, wherever you're at in that age group. And this doesn't just apply to brushing teeth. There's a lot of areas where I feel that parents have lost some of this determination and some of this gumption. And a lot of times, like I'll hear parents, I just want to say, like I said, I empathize with being overwhelmed. I empathize with just feeling like you need to tap out. I empathize with having anxiety, all of these things, depressions, all the different mental aspects that go into just being a person. I empathize with all of that. But at the end of the day, you're a parent now. The buck stops with you. You're the one who's responsible, and you're responsible to your children. You need to make sure that you're taking care of them, that they're making good decisions, and that you're preparing them and you're raising them as parents. I hear a lot of times parents just talk about like, well, I don't want to do this because it's anxiety inducing to me, or that just stresses me out to have to do this stuff. If you've got a partner and you guys can delegate different tasks based on what your anxieties are or what your stressors are or triggers are, great. But if you don't, I'm sorry. But at the end of the day, you as a parent are going to need to put aside your emotional baggage in order to provide for your children, to ensure that they don't have that emotional baggage, or that they don't fucking lose all their teeth when they're 3 years old because they haven't been brushing their teeth, or that they're watching 5 hours of fucking iPad a day because, you're not able to handle the stressors that come along with that. I guess what I'm saying is that you as a parent, it's okay to feel shitty and to feel uncertain, but you need to buck up. You're the one who needs to fucking figure it out. As the adult, you're the one who needs to take care of your kid. And then the second thing that I think that we need to really focus on as parents, and one of the things that I think is like the greatest piece of advice that I wish that I would have had when I first started parenting, was that in order to be a good parent, you really need to know about yourself. You need to be mindful about yourself. And this isn't in like the narcissistic or egotistical way, like, I need to know about me because I'm super important and like I'm strong. It's not that type of knowing about yourself. It's more so like knowing what your triggers are, knowing why you do the things that you do, knowing what things have happened to you in the past that really kind of paint your behavior moving forward, and how can you change any of those behaviors that you have that are toxic, that are negative, that are going to be detrimental to your children. We all have them. None of us are perfect, and none of us are ever going to be perfect. But if you come into parenting with more of like a mindful approach into how am I going to show up as a parent, it's going to be helpful to you, and it's going to be helpful to your children. And you're not going to get to perfect. You'll never get to perfect. But hopefully by having this open mentality, you're going to get as close to it as you possibly can. And you're also going to be demonstrating to your children that it's okay not to be perfect. Mommy and daddy aren't perfect. We're not, if you're Christian, we're not God. We're not some perfect being. We're human beings too. We're your mom and dad, right? We're your authority figure, but we also make mistakes. We also have issues, but we also like acknowledge those and we work through them. And this is all age appropriate too. You're not going to want to sit there and talk to your fucking 2-year-old about your anxiety or shit like that. But make sure that you know what's going on, because a lot of times the hardest thing about parenting is not the shit that they're doing, right? My son is running around the counter and, yelling. He's doing what a normal 5-year-old, 4-year-old wants to do. They want to run around. They want to get energy out. They want to be hyper, yell, scream, make noises. Like he's having fun. I may tell him hey, we need to use our inside voices. And he stops. And then 2 seconds later, he's running around screaming again. What's going on within me? Is it that my kid is a bad kid because they're just acting like a 5-year-old, yelling, screaming, having fun, running around, getting energy out? Yeah, they didn't listen to me, but like they're fucking 5. He probably forgot. It's not because he's like sitting there like, oh, I'm going to piss dad off by running around the counter and screaming in his fucking ear. No, that's not what he's thinking. I mean, maybe you got a fucking little psychopath on your hands, but for the most part, kids are not sitting there thinking like, how can I piss off mommy and daddy? It's the emotions and the thoughts that are going through my head that are going to paint that interaction. Whether I stay calm and just remind my son again, like, hey, bud, daddy asked you to use your inside voices. Can you please use your inside voice? And if he keeps on doing it, having that calm conversation like, hey, dude, you continue to forget to use your inside voice. If you scream again, we're not going to be playing in the kitchen anymore, or we're not going to be playing this game anymore. You're going to have to go into a different room and play something different. And sometimes that'll work. Sometimes it doesn't. You stick to your boundaries. That's a whole different episode in and of itself. Or you can let your own inner dialogue get to you and you can have this fucking explosion because you're like, I told my kid not to scream. He's screaming again. It's driving me insane. My emotions are just super high. Anger is peaked. I'm overstimulated. I can't handle the screaming. My kid's not listening to me. They're being a little shithead. They're trying to manipulate the system. They're really trying to get under my skin. And also for a lot of people, especially like dads or anyone who has like any type of authoritarian feelings within their parenting style, they're disobeying me. They're disobeying me by doing this. And so I need to respond in kind to make sure that they don't do that. And that's when you get the blow-ups, the yelling, the screaming, the timeouts, which I don't really believe in doing timeouts, the spanking, the hitting, all of these things that can come out not because your kid was running around doing what kids do, but all because you let your emotions get to you. You let your inner dialogue and all of the shit going on in your head come out and just explode onto your children. And it's really funny because a lot of times we as parents expect our children to be these perfect little angels and to like do shit really well. But like we don't reflect back and think like, well, what would I do if my kids started fucking screaming and hitting people and doing shit like that? If they started just losing their shit. That's not emotional regulation. That's not what I'm trying to teach my kids. And so it's funny because like you end up getting to this point where you are letting all of your emotions pour out. And this is like the opposite of what you're trying to teach your kid. You're trying to teach them to be emotionally regulated, to listen, to do all those things. But then like you're actually modeling for them the complete opposite. And I think it's just a funny thing sometimes to think that kids are little human beings and we expect so much out of them sometimes. And a lot of times we expect more out of them than we expect out of ourselves. So make sure that you're turning that back. That goes back to this whole mindful and knowing yourself thing. You really need to understand what makes you tick. Why are you getting so upset? Is it because of your own triggers, your own trauma, or is it objectively something that your kid is doing that's bad? And that's not to say that yelling or raising your voice isn't appropriate at certain times. It's not to say that, I'm not a spanker, I'm not a hitter. I don't plan on doing that with my children, but I do think that there are certain occasions where having some sort of like physical discipline inserted in can be appropriate, whatever that may be. I'm not going to go into that here right now. There are certain situations where different parenting styles are acceptable, but I think that ultimately you really need to understand yourself, what your parenting styles are, what your triggers are, where you're at emotionally, in order to truly teach your kids how to be good people. Because that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. You have kids, you want to raise them, you want them to be good people, you want to leave this world better than you came in. You're hoping that you can give your kids better. At least a lot of us are. For me personally, I want to try and make sure that my kids have a better upbringing than I had. Not to say that I had a shitty upbringing, but we're always trying to kind of like do better for our kids. And the way that I think that we can do better for our kids is by knowing ourselves, being determined, having gumption, and really focusing on being the best parents that we can be. It's really easy to focus on the faults and the issues with other people. And that's also true within parenting. It's easy for us to focus on what our kids are doing wrong. It's hard to turn the mirror around and look at ourselves and see what is it that we're doing that's contributing to this, or what are the things that are really affecting me and making me not be the most effective and loving parent that I could possibly be. So those are the two things that I think people can work on. I could probably talk about this for a lot longer. I may talk about it for a lot longer in a different episode, but I realize that I'm already at 36 fucking minutes right now, which is longer than I usually do these episodes, and my kids are going to start waking up. So we're going to cut it off here. You've got your list of the things that I think that you should physically get when you're a first-time parent, and then a couple of the mental and emotional things that I think you need to work on or to be cognizant of when you're a first-time parent, or not even when you're a first-time parent. You're just a person and you're looking to be a better person, or you eventually want to be a parent, or you're just looking for help in different areas. This is not just advice for your relationship with your kids. It can also be advice for relationships with other people, your family, your brothers, sisters, spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. Hopefully you take all this stuff and incorporate it into your life. You're not going to be perfect. No one's perfect. I'm not asking for perfection, but yep, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Hope that you all enjoyed it. My kids are starting to wake up, so I've got to wrap this up really quickly. If you haven't already, go and give me a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasting needs met. And then, like I always ask, I really encourage you that if there's someone that you think would enjoy this episode, enjoy this content, what I talk about, please press the little share button, send them an episode. You could text it to them, you can email it to them, but get the word out there. I think that this episode in particular would be helpful to anyone that is like a first time or a new parent, or even people who have been parents for a while. So get this out there, share it with them. I really appreciate it. Yeah, but other than that, hope everyone has a great rest of the week, good weekend. And as always, be good, try hard, do your best.